Question I get all the time is, when does a deer peak for antler size? This isn't a question of what deer should I pass, what age classes are in certain regions. I realize that changes all over the country. But what actually is the largest antler size based on age? And here's my answer. The answer is 7.5 in my experience. And I've done this for 30 years. I've had the fortunate blessing of being able to grow deer to maturity quite often. I mean, it's still rare, but I've got to see countless deer actually get to maturity and sometimes even die of old age. And over and over and over, 7.5 is the year. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 8. But over and over, it's 7.5. Here's a bunch of examples, really quick. This is a 5-year-old. Knew this deer since he was 2 years old. Here he is at 5. Here this deer is at 6. And here is this deer at 7. And this is when they generally get really heavy and a lot of extra trash. Can it happen at a younger age, an older age, so on? Sure, it can. And I'm not saying to not shoot a deer until they're 7 years old. I'm not advocating that, so I'm not looking to get into that debate. I mean, I like passing deer. If you don't, if that's not your thing, fine. But 7.5 is the year. Here's another one over here. I passed this deer. I actually passed him at 6. He was the only good deer on the farm, and I just didn't want to shoot him. The next year, he was 197 at 6 years old. At 7 years old, he was 213. And the mass he put on, it's hard to see by a camera, but the mass he put on is just insane from 6 to 7. So I'm actually glad I passed this deer. It was definitely a gamble. And here's another one over here. This deer, let's see here. This is his 5-year-old sheds. This is a 5-year-old. At 6, he grew a little bit. He maybe grew, I didn't actually find his left side, but it looked a lot like this. But he didn't grow much, so I actually let him go. And then here he is at 7 years old. He put on between 6 and 7, I think he put on close to 20 inches. He went from like 170 to like 190s from 6 to 7. So that again was another one that reached his peak at 7.5. This one I actually gambled wrong on. It was about a 200-inch deer at 6, and when I shot him, he was about 130 pounds. He was really wore down, and he actually went down to like about 190, but he was really sick. So there is some cases where they get sick, and then there's some regional areas. I mean, we're in Iowa. Maybe in Saskatchewan it might be different, or down south. But in Iowa, I would say pretty unanimously over the years, 7.5 is the year. That was a 7.5-year-old. That was a 7.5-year-old. That was a 7.5-year-old, and both of those got bigger. This is one I can't forget to mention. This deer is 6.5 years old right here. You can see it's just maybe a 160-inch deer. And we'll put the next picture up of what happened to him at 7.5. Went from about 160 inches to 241 inches. So 6 to 7, that's quite a jump. I've never seen anything like it, but that was the best jump I've ever seen in my life. I'm not telling you what to pass. I'm not telling you what to shoot. I'm just saying, based on facts, based on my experience, 7.5 is when the deer peak out and they grow their biggest antler.